Sure. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting to share some of the information and learnings I've had both through my studies and through going through the menopause transition myself. I'm a 49, well, turning 49 soon, mother of two based in sunny Tauranga. And about 5 years ago, I gave up my business career. I'd had a lot of retail stores for many years and decided to retrain and become a naturopath, medical herbalist, and I work as a nutritionist as well. And one of the reasons I did this was I saw the hormonal changes, how they were affecting me, but also the women in my circle. We were all kind of blindly sort of trying to get through some real challenges, and I wanted to go and learn more about how I could support myself and support others. So I guess it was a really, like, 4.5 years of study was a really intense way of of going and figuring out my own health issues. Probably could have just gone and seen a naturopath myself, but it's always been kind of something. Health has always been a big deal to me, and it's something I'm super passionate about. So it's been an incredible journey. And I now work in a clinic in Tauranga, and I see everyone, but I am really passionate about working with one-on-one and in group settings with women who are either early stage perimenopause, so just starting to notice some strange symptoms coming up, right through to postmenopause, taking care of things like cardiovascular health, bone health, and just outlook on life, how they want this new stage of life to be for them. So we do a lot of work around that, which I absolutely love as well.
Beautiful. And do you work online as well, or are you?
Yeah.
You
No,
do.
online's big.
Okay.
I saw a lot of clients last year in Auckland, so they have followed me into my own private clinic. So I have telehealth set up so I can see people, organise prescriptions and blood tests and things all around. Just at this stage, just New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So you're available to us. That's fantastic. So let's dive into our topic for today, which is that crazy time around sleep and menopause. What happens to our sleep? My sleep was substantially affected going through perimenopause. That's not a problem now, but man, it was an issue for a number of years. So you're here to guide us through that with our
Sure.
sleep troubles and perimenopause and menopause. So where's a good place to begin?
I guess just understanding, firstly, I would love to talk about just a few of the things that poor sleep can impact, because I think we think about short-term stuff like how rubbish we feel the day after we've had a bad night's sleep. And then that starts to impact as the sleep sort of, back in the day, you'd have a few nights of poor sleep and, it would be gone. You'd be back to sleeping normally. But I guess one of the downsides with aging is sleep becomes a mystical, magical thing that we can't quite get on a regular basis. And there's some real long-reaching implications with that. One of the underlying problems can be high blood pressure. So regular lack of sleep impacts our stress hormones like cortisol, and that can drive up blood pressure, which increases the risk of cardiovascular disease as well, because high blood pressure is one of the drivers of strokes and cardiovascular problems. So yeah, we definitely want to get a good quality of sleep to look after our blood pressure. It can affect our immune system. Again, anything that's driving or dysregulating our cortisol, a stress hormone, impacts our immunity. And melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, which we want lots of, that's actually an anti-inflammatory hormone as well. So that's going to help with inflammation and immune regulation. Stress, anxiety, depression. As I said, we know how rubbish we feel after a poor night's sleep, but long-term sleep, that dysregulation of our cortisol, our stress hormones, that can really drive the feelings of anxiety. It's actually sleep deprivation actually impacts a specific part of the brain, which is responsible for feelings of it, or associated with feelings of anxiety. So there's lots of flow-on effects from those mental health implications. Another one, which is so important and so relevant at this stage of life, is weight gain. It's probably one of the biggest things that my clients complain about. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. It's the amazing, when I've got people sleeping properly, we can do all the things around food and exercise, but sleep is probably the first thing I focus on, and one of the things that has such a big impact, because I mean, there's some chemical things that are happening there, like with blood sugar. Poor sleep impacts our insulin resistance and our blood sugar maintenance. And so that storm affects how we utilize energy and store fat. But also when you're sleep deprived and you're trying to get through the day, you're more likely to reach for quick carbs, sugar, something to help, caffeine to help you out, and less likely to do a really good job of exercising. So that's a huge one for people struggling with weight gain. And then brain fog and memory issues. So as you see, a lot of these things I'm talking about are things that we see as menopause symptoms. And so sleep can really have an underlying impact. There's, a lot that happens while our brain is resting, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. And obviously there's lots of causes behind brain fogs, not just sleep. There's hormonal changes and inflammation, but the sleep has an impact on how memories dealt with, and also how the cells send messages, the neurons send messages throughout the brain. So yeah, again, poor sleep can really impact that and increase those feelings of that brain fog. So that's just some of it. Like there's loads of research around even disease states that can be really affected by long-term chronic poor sleep. So I think it's something that people really do want to pay attention to, and not just accept that it's this stage of life and therefore, I'm only going to sleep 4 or 5 hours and it's going to be poor sleep. It's just the stage of life, because you can get sleep back. It takes a bit of work, but it's, as you can see from these health issues, it's definitely worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And so why does sleep change for many women that I talk to, and including myself, so dramatically in perimenopause?
There's a few reasons. One of the biggest one would be the shift in hormones. So we obviously go through this wild ride of peaking estrogen and progesterone slowly exiting the building as our ovarian stores run out. And progesterone is a hormone. It's a calming hormone. It's a sleep inducing hormone. So as you lose that, that definitely has an impact on sleep. And also, like with estrogen, with the peaks and troughs of estrogen, we see the hot flushes come in, and with the lowering of estrogen, we see those night sweats start to ramp up. And it's pretty hard to sleep when you are, so much hotter, or when you are waking up and the bed's completely drenched. That's not super supportive of a quality night's sleep. So that's a couple of reasons. We also become less resilient with the hormone imbalances. We become less resilient to stress. So it feels like a much more stressful time of life. And I guess if we stop and think about it for a while, external things that you probably would have taken in your stride. Well, 20s, you wouldn't have been worried about it. 30s, you would have taken it through your stride. But in your 40s and 50s, these little things can become a lot more overwhelming, and things seem to stack up, and we're a lot more responsive or reactive, I guess, to some of the things that are happening in our lives. So obviously, if we're feeling more stressed and we're worrying about more things, that in turn is telling our body, that we are in a dangerous situation, and therefore we go and release those stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and that's going to have a direct impact on our stress. So yeah, definitely when we get down to talk about things that we can do to support our sleep, really ramping up that stress management and the nice things we can do for ourselves as well. The other thing, as I said earlier, blood sugar impact. So I see a lot of changes in insulin sensitivity due to, again, the loss of estrogen. We become like an insulin resistant state, a lot of women, and we need insulin to escort sugar into the cells so the cells can use the glucose for energy. But what happens as we go through this change is a couple of things. We can end up quite fatigued from not having enough glucose for energy, but also our blood sugar can become quite erratic, and those peaks and troughs can really affect our sleep. So if our blood sugar is nice and stable throughout the day, then often it tends to be quite stable at night. But if it's a bit of a wild ride during the day, and we wake up with low blood sugar, and then we have some kind of high energy, maybe cereal or toast or something sweet that's going to peak our blood sugar, then it's going to drop down quite substantially, which then needs more sugar to help us bring it up again. And so we kind of go up and down and up and down. Yeah. And that can translate into your sleep as well. So for people who are kind of waking at 3, quite wide awake, there can be a number of things, but often I'm finding with clients, it's actually the blood sugar's dropped quite low. Cortisol's come in to say, hey, liver, release some blood sugar so we can stay alive, breathe, do whatever we need to do. And as a result of that, when you get a shot of cortisol in the middle of the night, of course, it's like, it's not even sleepy awake, it's wide awake. And then that's often when we get that wake up that is hard to go back to sleep. Yeah. So there's so many things happening there. So yeah, it's a fun ride, like with a lot of the symptoms that we experience. Yeah. Amazing, really, to make it through all this.
Yeah, we're incredible. And never fear, we're going to actually get into some strategies, some helpful things as we go through this. But you're talking about poor sleep and, and I think about good sleep, but actually what should we be aiming for as a sort of a ballpark? What is good sleep?
Sure. Well, okay, so I'll just go over a little bit of like not what sleep is, but I guess how sleep actually works in the body, because we've taken it for granted for years that it's always just going to be something that's going to be there and you just shut your eyes and it happens. But what actually happens is the body walks on a 24-hour clock called the circadian rhythm, right? And that clock kind of defines when the melatonin comes in, to some degree, when the melatonin comes in and when sleep happens, and again when we wake up. And that clock is defined or kind of works on a part of the brain which is light and dark sensitive. So that's why it's really, really important to, for starters, have really regular sleep and wake patterns if you can. That really supports a good sleep. And to get light in your eyes in the morning and have things nice and dark and moody in the evening. So I highly recommend, like, anyone who's struggling with sleep, first thing when you wake up or within that first bit of waking up in the morning, get outside if you can, sit on the deck with your warm water and lemon, or take the dog for a quick walk around the block and with sunglasses off. Now, I'm not talking get your eyeballs at the sun, but I'm just saying light in the eyes tells the brain, turn off the melatonin, it's time to be awake, and hopefully we'll have some nice cortisol because cortisol is good, we actually want it. It keeps us awake during the day. It's just we don't want it in 3 a.m. So yeah, so basically we want some light in the morning, and then at bedtime, heading even from sort of 7:30 onwards, lower lights, creating that mood for sleep, and then pitch black as possible, like when the kids were babies. We want it really black to give us a really good night's sleep. Your circadian rhythm, which manages a lot of this. And then you've got the hormones, as I said, that come in. So melatonin kicks in anything from sort of 9:30, 10:30-ish, and helps us fall into that sleep pattern. And then cortisol comes at the other end of the day and wakes us up and gets us moving. Now, during those patterns, once we are asleep, there's what some people may have heard of, like the REM sleep or the rapid eye movement sleep, and then the non-rapid eye movement sleep. And to make it really brief, REM sleep is when we process what's happened during the day, we consolidate our memories, and then during the non-REM sleep is when a lot of the neurotransmitters actually switch off for a bit. So things like serotonin, histamine, they'll actually switch off, which gives the little receptors that the neurotransmitters tell them to do something, gives these little receptors a little rest and helps them become more able to pick up the messages. So it's a great time for sort of resetting the brain, resetting our systems. During that time also, the brain cleans out. So with the brain working really, really hard during the day, a lot of sort of waste is created, which clogs up the brain. We've got this system called the lymphatic system, kind of like the lymph system of the body, which clears out our waste and works as our immune system. The lymph system in the brain is clearing out all that junk that is sitting in there. We want that gone to help with inflammation and to help with clear thought. So that's all happening while we're asleep. So kind of it's really important to make sure we are getting enough sleep. And the research I've read sort of indicates that sort of 7 to 9 hour window is actually optimum. And there's like obviously people out there who say 5 hours because we've got lots to achieve and that they do really well on 5 hours. But from what I've been seeing, to have all these processes happen well, we want a good sort of 7 to 9 hours sleep, especially as we're approaching this sort of more hectic time of life.
Yes, so that's definitely been the sweet spot for me. And actually, when I talk to my partner about sleep, and he's not a woman, but he's in midlife-ish, and he doesn't sleep that great. And I sort of talk to him about but sleep is the foundation. So if we do all this other stuff, but you're staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
then honestly, what is the point? Bit harsh, but sleep really is the foundation of our health and well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as we talked about with those, the previous kind of the impacts it can have, it's up there with, hydrating and eating well.
Yeah.
It's as important, if not more important, because, our brain health is like everything. And so we really want to do all we can to maximize that time where the brain is restoring and repairing itself as well. So yeah, super, super relevant for men, women, children, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So tell us about our friends, caffeine and alcohol, because I used to be able to get away with it pre-perimenopause, and now I cannot. Neither caffeine nor alcohol. They really destroy the quality of my sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So caffeine has a half-life in the body of about 6 hours, give or take, depending on the person. So, and it's a stimulant. So if you're having it anything after kind of lunchtime, it's literally still there being like, hey, come on, let's do some stuff. So definitely if you're having caffeine, and there's a lot of other reasons that I won't go into today why in midlife we don't want to be having a lot of caffeine, but if you're having a coffee in the morning, highly recommend having it after some food, and probably early in the morning, and just having one. I would hesitate to have any kind of caffeinated drink, whether it's soda or anything else, after lunchtime, because it can definitely, even if you're a reasonable sleeper, it can definitely not only impact sleep quality, onset, but also the quality and depth of that sleep and the ability to have good REM sleep as well. As far as alcohol goes, it's a rough one, because I know a lot of women reach for the end of the day alcohol to, wine to, or whatever, to help with the day's, stress of the day and all those kind of things. But yeah, it definitely, the liver load, the sugar content, it really does have an impact on the quality of our sleep. And you do notice it. Like I've spoken to quite a few women lately who are just saying to me, I love a drink, but I just couldn't stomach it, or I just did not feel like it. And I guess that's the body just saying, not right now, maybe later, but not not right now. Sleep's too important. So even though it does feel relaxing and like make you feel a little bit sleepy in the evening, it will actually have an impact later on the quality of that sleep, and just doesn't make us feel great the next day either. I've actually had to stop. I probably had maybe 3 or 4 units a year now, because it is just not my friend. So I've found lots of other delicious alternatives and new routines around having a wine glass in my hand.
Yes, because a lot of it is that psychological, I've had a stressful day, I've been really busy, and I'm still cooking dinner, I'm still doing things. What can I do to treat or nourish myself? That was what was going on for me. Yeah. Absolutely. And then it just made me feel worse and worse and worse, even just one drink. And now I'm sort of at the stage where I can have 1 or 2 drinks a week or whatever, and I'm okay. I'm okay. But wine is no longer my friend at all. Yeah. And I know a lot of women my age who feel the same way.
So sad. I used to love a good Pinot Noir, but like I have a couple of mouthfuls now, and I know. Yeah, so definitely creating, I mean, this is the era of self-care. Like this journey it's all about us. It's time to really take stock of our needs and really take care of ourselves, and start educating those people that we've given to for all these years about how they can support us. So little things that I've done is I've definitely I've really ramped up my self-care, probably. My partner might say too much, but definitely looking at areas, things that bring you joy, because, when you're doing things that bring you joy, you're less needing to reach for other things to bring you joy. I always have an arsenal of things I can drink that delicious but non-alcoholic. So there's I love like some kombucha, sparkling water and lemon. During the winter, herbal teas, because they relax me, especially like with lemon balm and passion flower and chamomile and things like that. Licorice, they actually have quite a profound effect on my nervous system. So that's like a win-win. And things like going for a walk, building oxytocin and dopamine, those happy, nice, nourishing neurotransmitters by patting a pet and cuddling someone, bringing more of that in, so we're not needing these external things to kind of get those boosts of goodness, and creating routines. I can still go out for dinner, I can still go to an event, and there's always now something there, because it's really becoming quite a thing to not drink. And there's no judgment on anyone that does. I'm just saying, if it's not working for you right now, there are plenty of ways to take a break. You don't need to feel bad about it, because it's amazing how many people are making this choice now because it's just not working for them. So the options, if you go to the supermarket and look at the alcohol-free section, it's getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, there's plenty of options out there. And then readdress it. Like when you come through the transition and things have really settled down, readdress it, what you want your relationship with alcohol to be. But it'll certainly, your liver will be super happy to have taken a break, because at the moment it's got a big job dealing with all the massive hormone fluctuations that are happening. It's under pressure with the dysregulated blood sugar. So that guy needs some love, and taking away alcohol for a little bit is super supportive.
Yeah, it's very supportive for our liver. That's right. And it doesn't mean that we're never going to have fun now. That's what I had to understand within myself. And that's certainly, how it's rolled out for me.
Yeah.
Hey, so night sweats for women, for many women, is very difficult, like really challenging. What sort of tips and advice have you got for us around that?
Firstly, with hot flushes and night sweats, is trying to get to the bottom of what's actually happening for you. Is it just a lack of estrogen, or is it blood sugar, or is it stress? So just to give an example, this is more, I was getting the night heat as well, not sweats, but heat. But through the last year of college, I had terrible, very, very strong hot flushes, like really would kind of feel them come and they would zoom forward and full on, and I would run several degrees hotter at night, which really was impacting my sleep. And I just presumed it was just another phase of the fun time, and just kind of did my best to manage those symptoms. As soon as I finished college and got back home, I was traveling. As soon as I got back into a home environment, gone. Hot flushes, night sweats, gone. So stress was a massive, massive impact for me, and managing my stress now sees none of that happening. So firstly, identify, is it stress, and how we can manage that better. Again, blood sugar, quite often people will be able to, if they drop in enough, identify that drop of blood sugar and the rush in of cortisol or adrenaline that can be behind their heat. So managing, and I'll talk about food and stuff later on, but managing that blood sugar so that's a lot more regulated, that can help. And if it's all of those things taken care of, and it seems to be just the hormonal peaks and troughs, some of my tips would be definitely looking at your linen. What's under your mattress? Is it like a synthetic mattress protector? Is your linen nice and breathable? There's obviously good quality cotton, bamboos, linens, those types of things that are really breathable. Having layers that you can remove, so lightweight blankets instead of like a big heavy duvet, even if it means that your partner has a different duvet to you. Breathable, no pajamas, or breathable, lightweight pajamas or sleepwear. And if you could see my room now, I actually literally have moved my bed to the window. So my head sleeps by an open window. I have a giant fan pointed at my head and it works really well. So this was more for when I was going through my really stressful heated period. It's not so bad now, although I do sleep a lot better when the room is cool. But I will literally go to bed with my head right by the window. And if I'm having some hot stuff going on, a fan pointed at me. And that's because in your brain is the sensor for temperature. And in perimenopause, menopause, that goes on the fritz and sort of over exaggerates or gets really sensitive. So you might walk from a cool space into a warmer space and your body suddenly goes, oh my God, it's so hot, we're on fire. Sends all our blood rushing away from our internal organs to the outside of our body, and we get that hot flush. So keeping this area nice and cool is a great way to help with that. And then, managing the blood sugar, which I'll get to when we chat about the food side of things. So those are some tips. Having a cool shower before bed is really beneficial. Not only does it help cool the core down, but it also tells your brain that it's time to release the melatonin. So I'm not talking ice bath situation, but just cooler than a really hot shower that can raise the temperature as well.
Yeah, really great tips there. And sleep apnea. So how might that be affecting our sleep? Is that something that gets worse as we get older?
Yeah, I was actually just reading some research about this when I was looking into other bits and pieces for today. And it does seem in women, it does seem to get worse with age. I'm not sure of all the mechanisms behind that. Definitely with weight gain, that can affect our ability to breathe well during our sleep and more likely to have issues with sleep apnea. And I think because, I mean, estrogen receptors are everywhere in the body, right? Like everywhere on it.
Yeah.
When I started looking into it, it's like literally every part of our body can be affected by estrogen telling it to do a job. And I do wonder if there's something with the back of the throat and the way we breathe being impacted by those hormones as well, because potentially that could be a mechanism. But the research does show definitely as we are aging and getting into this phase that there's a big increase in the incidence of sleep apnea. And sleep apnea, the ramifications are far, I mean, it's not just poor snoring and poor quality of sleep, but all of that can lead to the dysregulations during the day, to weight gain, inflammation, those types of things. So if it's something that potentially could be happening, it's definitely worth looking into and getting it identified and getting some help with that if it is a problem for you.
Right. And so how do you know if that's going on for you other than
Often it'll be because it's to do with not getting breath or sometimes gasping in the night. So often your partner will point out that you're maybe snoring more or that they're hearing you gasping. Sometimes you can feel it in yourself as well, that you kind of feel like you can't take a breath or you're gasping for breath. And I guess if you were seeing a lot of, there's a couple of clients that come to me and I'm like, with what you're telling me, I want to investigate it. So weight gain outside of anything super obvious. So, quite good diet and, doing all the things, but seeing like, weight gain, a lot, very much daytime fatigue, that kind of thing. If thyroid's looking okay and a lot of the other numbers are looking okay, and if they are newly snoring, then I'm like, let's look into this because this is something that could be going on for you.
Nice, really helpful. And so what about, ways in our everyday life and you pointed towards food and that kind of thing, can we help the quality of our sleep given everything else that's going on?
Absolutely. So what I'd highly recommend to anyone who is having trouble sleeping is to look at your whole day, because sleep is not what happens after 9 o'clock, right? It is from the minute the cortisol kicks in and we wake up on that cycle. So everything throughout the day has an impact. So I'd really take some time and consider what you're doing throughout your day that could be impacting what happens at the other end of the day. It's massive. And when I work with clients around this and we start looking at all these things that are happening during the day, where the stress is coming in, when they're eating, what they're eating, it's really easy to pinpoint some areas that they can quite simply make some great changes. So looking at that and creating a nice routine for life that is sleep supportive, because then that's health supportive. So things like obviously getting up in the morning, getting that light in your eyes is the first thing I would say. Now, we also want to get lots of protein in because melatonin's the end goal for helping with sleep. Serotonin is our happy, one of those nice hormones that turns into melatonin. But prior to serotonin, we need tryptophan. And tryptophan is an amino acid that we get from protein. right? So we want to be eating plenty of protein for so many reasons. Like we literally are made of protein, and all our neurotransmitters and everything is protein. So getting enough protein. And so I highly recommend people having a good protein-filled breakfast for lots of reasons. But it will help with our tryptophan, and it will help keep our blood sugar nice and steady during the day. So that can look like some eggs and some salmon, or a protein smoothie. It can be some oats, some yogurt, some seeds, and some berries, seed pudding with some extra protein. I mean, there's loads. And if anyone's interested, if they reach out, I can send out some recipes and things like that to help support protein in the morning. So yeah, getting that protein in. We also want some carbs throughout the day, because we need carbs to add to the tryptophan to make the serotonin. So when I say carbs, I'm not necessarily talking like sugar and white bread and things like that. I'm talking like whole grain carbs that are sustaining our blood sugar throughout the day, not peaking it. So things like whole grain bread, if you're going to have bread, rice can be a good one, quinoa. Basically, some good whole grains to sustain your energy and to help balance your blood sugar. So that would be the first point. Getting hydration throughout the day, because what tends to happen is we run 1,000,000 miles an hour, we don't drink enough water. After work, we're like, oh, I'm dehydrated. So we drink a whole bunch of water in the evening, and then we need to get up and pee in the night. And so anything that's waking us up is interrupting our sleep cycle, and then there's the risk we're not going to go back to sleep. So staying nice and hydrated, again, it impacts so many things in the body, but it definitely helps support good sleep. So other regular meals would be lunch, again, protein, some good carbohydrates and some fat, a decent sized lunch, so we're not running on empty and therefore affecting our nervous system. And then coming into dinner time, what I've seen work quite well is a lighter dinner. And not, if you're going to have the heavier proteins like red meat and stuff, I'd actually have that more with your breakfast or lunch, when your digestive system's firing a lot better, a lot stronger, and then have that lighter dinner. So, if you're wanting animal protein, chicken, fish, that type of thing. But yeah, something lighter, because it's easier for our digestive system to process. We're going to be going to sleep in a couple of hours, so we don't want to be lying there with a lot of food and gurgling and things happening, because that in itself is going to be potentially keeping us awake. So yeah, I like a light dinner in the evening, and definitely eating early in the evening to give us a big window of time for digestion to happen. So, and that can help with things like bloating, indigestion, discomfort, even reflux to some degree, because sometimes when we go to sleep, and also in menopause, the little valve that keeps all the food down where it should be can get a bit lax, and then we go to bed, and so we tend to get more acid reflux. So yeah, early in the evening would be a great way to go. And then I guess leading into, really important, managing your stress throughout the day. So yeah, I can't forget that one. So
don't forget that.
Things like when something happens, you take a phone call or an email, or someone lets you down, stopping and doing a bit of breath. It can be a few deep breaths. I really love cyclic sighing at the moment. It's such a hack for someone who, I'm not great at doing a 20-minute meditation, but I will sit for 90 seconds to a couple of minutes and cyclic sigh. And if you Google that, it's super easy, and it's my favorite at the moment. So yeah, just like even sitting at the lights, if you're feeling tense, just doing some nice slow breaths. So we're tapering our nervous system regularly throughout the day, rather than going into these big like end of the world moments, which is going to really increase that cortisol response. So yeah, really managing that, doing some nice things for yourself, having some nice thoughts, taking 5 minutes to go and sit and eat your lunch in the sun, or even at work, if you can, going for a walk around the block, putting your feet on the grass, like anything you can do to calm down that nervous system. Get in nature after work if you can, because that's going to lead to better sleep. We can't run on empty and run frantically all day and then expect our brain to just switch off. It's good. It needs some kind of
little and often, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more sustainable as well, because people are busy. So yeah, definitely looking at that. And then coming into sleep time. So after work, obviously meals and all the rest of it. But as we get to that kind of 7:30, 8 o'clock time onwards, bringing the lights down low, creating a nice mood in the house. If you've got kids, it will help even with their sleep and sleep quality. So, less noise, if you're watching TV or reading something, things that are less likely to be stimulating or upsetting. So definitely avoiding any big conversations or arguments, avoiding anything too dramatic or traumatic. So your nervous system's nice and calm, everything's feeling a lot more sleep supportive. And then I always have, and have for a number of years, because I really struggled in that probably early 40s, my sleep was pretty bad. So I have done, oh my gosh, I don't want to think about all the things I've done over the years to try and support myself, but I have created a pretty consistent mini sleep routine, which I can take. So if I'm traveling or whatever's going on, I can still bring that online to make sure I have a good night's sleep. So everyone will be different. And if you want I've got a handout that has lots of ideas on it. Just reach out if you would like a look at that. But basically mine looks like, as I said, bringing the low lights down, doing something chill. I'll usually do a lot of stretching. Things are starting to get quite tight, especially with all the typing and just stress. So stretching and doing what you can to kind of turn down any pain that you might have going on, because obviously that's not helpful for sleep. I will always have my magnesium before I go to bed. It is something that I think everyone I've come across as being very deficient of magnesium. If you've got things like muscle aches and pains and leg cramps and feeling quite anxious, often that can have an underlying magnesium as well as other nutrient deficiencies. But you need magnesium for so many hundreds of processes in the body, and we just don't get it a lot from our diet anymore. So that can really be helpful, but there are very particular types of magnesium which help with sleep. Some will help greatly with constipation, which is fine if you are constipated, but if you're not, they can have a negative effect. So if you think you may be allergic to magnesium because you get diarrhea when you take it, please reach out and I will talk to you about the forms of magnesium which are sleep supportive. But anyway, definitely some magnesium. I'll have a sleepy tea. So my partner and I brew a little, because I don't want to have huge amounts of water, but we'll brew quite a strong little sleepy tea, which we'll sip while we're kind of winding down. And I really like to use a Shakti mat. I find that works really well for me. It's an acupressure mat, and lying on that seems to bring all the blood and the oxygen into my back. And as a result, within about 10 minutes, that combination, the eyelids are getting very, very heavy, and I will have a very deep, dark sleep now if everything else is lined up during the day. So that's just mine, but for other people, there are lots of different things that I've seen working. Some will do like a little mini yoga before bed, or they will listen to a guided meditation. I've got one with an Irish guy talking for about 20 minutes, which I never have heard the end of it. It puts me out every time. So there's some great resources there, and a lot of them are free if you try YouTube.
Yeah.
Look online. And so some stuff like that, a yoga nidra, which again is it's called a yogic sleep, that is like a talking meditation that can be really great for helping you fall asleep. There's a breathing technique I love called the sunbather, which in my really tricky years of not sleeping, someone taught to me. And that was basically, you lie on your bed and you have a pillow underneath your knees, and you just drop your knees, not like full butterfly, but you just kind of drop your knees out to the side. So there's no pressure on any part of your body, little pillow under the head, and you actually bring your hands back behind your head. And in this position, you can only diaphragmatically breathe. You're no longer breathing into your chest. So you're getting that nice long, which we hardly ever do, these nice long diaphragmatic breaths. And when I used to do that, again, if I did 10 minutes of that, I'd be out. And that's beneficial not only for sleep, but like nervous system as well. So it's a great thing if you're suffering with anxiety and other things like that, it's a great one to put in your arsenal for tools when you need it. So that's just some of the things. Oh my gosh, there's so many lists of bits and pieces you can add into. And so I kind of give people the list and I say, try something for 3 or 4 nights. If it works, put it into your routine, and then come up with your own little sleep routine, depending on your lifestyle and what's going to
be a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And a lot of those tools, I think, those times when I was waking up at 3 in the morning and that was me for 3 hours, I could actually do those tools while I was lying there. And, maybe I wasn't going back to sleep then because of other things that were going on with my physical well-being. because of perimenopause, but I was getting the rest. So
Yeah.
it is, they're
Yeah,
very helpful.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing around that is identifying why that middle of the night waking is coming. Like, is it because you're worrying about something? Is it because you need to, so worry is one thing. We can, work on the stress and also some nutrients to help get you through that time. Is it urination? So that's a big one, because with that, we want to dig into, is it the membrane and the tissues around the bladder and vagina, which is causing a more sensitive, is it the bladder's too empty and it's becoming hypersensitive, or coffee making it sensitive? Are you drinking too much water in the evening? Has the bladder become, something's happened, so you've woken up a few times one night and it becomes a habit. So, do we need to retrain that bladder that actually you don't need to wake me up? So that's one reason. Is it liver? And we need to address that and give the liver some love and support. Is it blood sugar? So those things we want to look at first, but also we want to sort of think about how we manage ourselves when we do wake up, because the first night you kind of don't think too much about it, but when it's happening subsequent nights, you start to panic. And you start to feel, because you're feeling so rough during the day, it becomes like, I have to sleep tonight. Like, whatever happens, I have to sleep. It's going to affect my work. It's going to do this. I can't do that. And all of these stories start happening. So the danger of that is creating patterns for starters and creating those stress hormones. So, a couple of things you can do is the first night, fine, whatever, but the second night it happens, try really hard to not engage with those stories and those thoughts, and which can be really tricky. And so what I would say is, don't clock watch so much, because that's a real common thing to do. Don't clock watch. You could have a little rescue remedy, a little sleep herb, a little routine that you have which helps you go back to sleep, and just go straight into that before having this conversation in your brain. I noticed there was a time in my life, and it was stress related, but I was waking at literally 2:11, say, every single night, and it would happen, and I'd look at the clock and I'd be, oh my God, it's 2:11 again, like, why is this happening? And all these stories, and tomorrow I'm not going to do this, and I'd become so stressed that it would take me hours to go back to sleep. And then I can't remember who told me this, I probably learned it on Instagram or something, but it was like, make friends with this, like, laugh at it. And so the next night it was like, again, 2:11, and I was like, lol, 2:11, of course it's happening. That's so funny that it's happening at 2:11. Like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Took the power away and I started sleeping through again. And I'm not saying that's going to work for everyone, but definitely taking the power of that fear, of that negative talk away, can be really, really powerful. Or just saying, like, for a while there, I just said, okay, if this happens and I'm not in a state to work tomorrow, I'm just going to call in sick, because I shouldn't be seeing people if I'm in this state. And again, that took the power of the worry of what could happen away.
That's right.
And I never needed to do that, but it gave me the option. It took away the pressure. And I think that's a really powerful thing, if you can do it as well, just to take the pressure off yourself, or just say, look, okay, this happens, I'm going to get up, I'm going to read for a little bit, I'm going to make myself another little sleepy tea or take some of my herbs, and then I'm going to get back to sleep, and it's going to be great. Yeah, definitely changing the mindset and the conversations around it.
The mindset's huge, and I think there's a lot of lessons in there for how we approach other stressors in our life as well, that we often don't put ourselves first because that's our conditioning. And so this midlife time is a beautiful time to start really nurturing and nourishing ourselves and putting ourselves first. And if that means, well, actually today my caseload is going to be less, or work is going to have to adjust, if we can do that, then that becomes really important and far reaching, I think, out into our lives as well. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like, we've got to think about what we're teaching our children in general, but our daughters, like, I've got older children now, older girls, and I'm having a lot of conversations around, they saw me go through this crazy period in my 30s of running multiple businesses and just like and I did burn out. And I'm now saying to them, do what you love, don't do what I did, don't follow mum, because to me, health and happiness is way more important. And I got it wrong. First to say I got it wrong. That was not the way to live. I did not practice any self-care. You know, yoga once every 3 weeks was not going to undo the amount of damage I was doing to my nervous system, to my sleep cycle. And I was pouring daily from an empty cup. I want them to see, and hopefully they see it now, someone who does prioritize rest and joy and, you know, doing all the things for myself, that I don't need to feel guilty about it, that I don't need to justify it. And that's, I'm a better mum and a better partner if I'm taking care of myself. And that is, it's a shift I'm seeing coming through now. There's a lot of conversations around this, and I really hope this next generation learns from that.
Is there anything important that you want to share as we come to nearing the end of our conversation about sleep?
No, I think I've gone in pretty deep and covered it.
I think you've gone really deep. It's been fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, I think I've covered it pretty well. I guess it's just, yeah, it's I'm giving you permission to take care of yourself. I'm giving you permission to prioritize your sleep for your longevity, from point of view of your health and happiness. Please, yeah, make this a priority and start taking care of yourself the way you would someone else you really care about. I think that's really, really important. And if you are struggling with sleep, there is so much you can do. Don't just accept that this is the stage of life or the age and you just need to put up with it. Reach out to your health practitioner. Even in a health food shop, you know, there is lots of great information out there that can really improve what's happening for sleep.
And if they want to reach out to you for further advice, how can they do that?
Yeah, just have a look on my website. So it's nextphasehealth.co.nz. Otherwise, if you want to jump on Instagram, it's pretty horrific. I've started putting up some live reels with information about just basics of life, like how to food prep so you're not cooking every night, how to eat vegetables, because like I was not a vegetable eater and I've had to learn how to be. So how to make vegetables delicious. But I also put lots of information around stress and sleep and the things I do to manage that. So that's where you can get some free information, is just to go follow me on Instagram or Facebook. And that's again, just Next Phase Health. And yeah, that might be a good starting point to get some hints and tips. Otherwise, feel free to just message me through my website, and I'm happy to send out the handouts that I give out to my clients, because I just think this is such an important set of information for everyone, really.
Yeah, so fantastic. You've given us a really, really great grounding in, you know, what can we do to help our sleep when things get a little bit chaotic and go off the rail a bit, which is super common at this stage of life. So really, really appreciate your input and our conversation, Lisa. Thank you so much.
No, it's been amazing. Thank you.